But let's start with coverage, because really a lot of the magic in this reg is making sure that you understand when all of these requirements are triggered, because some of your outs or some of the complicated situations you might run into, the real key is going to be figuring out whether or not you need to even follow all of these rules. So let's start with where do we start? And Reg CC only applies to demand accounts. Okay, so we're talking, your standard checking accounts or now accounts, things along those lines. So since it only applies to demand accounts, that means they do not apply to any deposits that are made into savings accounts or MMDA accounts or CDs. Those deposits, they don't have the same availability rules. Okay, so a deposit, let's say I take a check and we're going to put it into my savings account. Well, now all of our timing rules don't apply. You can hold off or you can wait on a check that you don't have the timing requirements on a savings account like you would with a checking account. Okay, so step one, making sure that we understand when we have to play the game with these hold rules. Additionally, any checks that are placed for collection are also not subject to Reg CC. So that anytime you're going to take that physical check and you're going to mail it to the other financial institution so they can review it, and it's a manual, time-consuming process, you don't have to follow the hold rules. Okay, so keep that in the back of your head. We'll come back to it in just a moment. And then finally, another common area of confusion is with mobile deposits. Okay, keep in mind, if you have one of those apps or you have the process where I can take my cell phone and I can take a picture of that check and I can deposit it that way. Mobile deposits are not subject to Reg CC as well. You likely have a mobile deposit contract or an agreement that your customers agree to when they open up that functionality. You don't have to go through this typical hold process for those types of accounts. So let's pause here and make sure that we're kind of understanding what types of deposits do we have to worry about Reg CC. Business accounts. Yes, right. A business account that would qualify as a demand account. So business accounts, you do have to follow Reg CC. Checking accounts, now accounts, you do have to follow the Reg CC rules. Savings accounts, no, those are off the table. CDs, those are off the table. But do check your state laws. So that's one caveat I want to include in here. I do say savings accounts are out. Some state laws do apply Reg CC rules to your savings account. So if you're in a state like California, I believe, and maybe Massachusetts, they have some of these requirements applying to your state, to your savings accounts. So keep that in mind as well. I'm talking generally from a federal perspective. That's where coverage sets. Okay. Now, also keep in mind when I say checks placed for collection, that is that physical process that we go through. We're going to take a customer comes in and brings a check, right, and deposits it. You take the check, but you don't deposit it into the account. Okay, you actually send that check to the paying bank or go through there. Sometimes there's a slightly different process, but generally, traditionally, you're sending that piece of paper to the paying bank. They take that check in the mail. They review it. They check to see if the account is valid, if there's sufficient funds, if the check is legitimate and not fraud. And then they remit the funds to you. And then the customer doesn't receive that credit until you receive the funds from that other bank. All right. So this may take several days since it's a manual physical process. A lot of times there are fees involved. Just keep in mind, though, that is not something that you have to follow these Reg CC rules, right? Because you're not actually depositing that check. You're sending it to the paying bank. All right. So keep that in mind as well. You can go through that process. If you've got a funky check, you can always go through that process. There are fees that are involved, and you can even pass those fees on to the customer. But here's the thing. A lot of customers or a lot of our processes, it's intended to be fast, right? We want to be fast. And so we don't see a lot of those checks placed for collection.